Hey, Redcon Raider here, and welcome to the alpha playtest for Sovereign Syndicate by Crimson Herring Studios. Now this is a game I've had my eye on for a while, but as far as I'm aware, this is the first public playable demo for it thus far. Full disclosure, I have already played through it once, and it was not at all what I was expecting. I went into it kind of expecting more of a spiritual successor to Arcanum, the classic fantasy steampunk game from Troika. But in actuality, it's a lot more like a fantasy steampunk take on Disco Elysium, of all things. That is not at all something I ever thought would exist, but it kind of works. I will say that, much like with Disco Elysium, it is important to realize exactly what you're getting yourself into with a game like Sovereign Syndicate. It's less a conventional ISO CRPG and more of like a point-and-click adventure game. There are attributes, there are skills, there are quests, there's an RNG system, but there is no combat to speak of. Violent encounters are resolved via skill checks in the dialogue system. You also don't get to make your own character. Much like in Disco Elysium, you are instead exploring the story of a colorful but flawed pre-made character, though eventually we will have access to 3 separate characters, all of the ones shown on the start screen here, who will have overlapping, mingling narratives. Anyway, it is a lot easier to show than tell with this one, so we'll be jumping in momentarily. But before we do, I'd just like to give special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Matthew Smith, Revenant, Eloise, A Nerd in Warpaint, Dragon Matrix 7, Eerie V23, Excelsior, Gottlieb, Kazorm, Nathan Welch Jr., Robbie B., Thomas Pietkowski, Trip Hoppenskip, and Valenrook. That said, let's get started. Atticus Awakens. Follow Atticus Daley as he explores the seedy underbelly of London's East Docklands in search of his mother, a reason for living, and his next fix. Oh, right, and while we don't get to design our own characters, we do at least get to influence the way the pre-gens are built. I don't know how the other 2 are handled, because obviously we can't play them just yet. But with Atticus, we can choose one of 4 starting templates, which decides our specialized attributes, skills, and our starting tarot card, which we'll talk about a bit later. Now, my first time through, I of course grabbed the Hermit build, since I usually naturally gravitate towards the thinky, sort of detective builds. But I've already seen what that one has to offer, so let's go with the exact polar opposite of that. We will grab the Chariot build, which will instead crank up our animal instinct and our intimidation factor. I'll be curious to see just how much of a difference that makes, especially given the semi-unique way that ability scores work in this game. It's not unique, especially not if you play Disco Elysium, but you'll see what I'm talking about. A dark shape looms over you. Against the guttering lamplight, the black-shadowed form hovers unsteadily, like a cutout in a magic lantern. You can't be sure whether it's a real, living thing, or another grim manifestation of your week-long bender, which at first blush you appear to have survived. Or is this, in fact, death, come to claim you? In any case, the specter seems to be in no hurry to move along. Painful memories prick your gin-addled brain. Now you recall why you're here. You chose this alleyway in London's East End, to drown the last of your days in drink. Well, if this apparition isn't the angel of death, then even at suicide, you have failed. Quite the inspiring beginning to our tale. Atticus, he's coming. Wake up! Get out of my head, you old crone. Atticus Daley. How does he know my name? His voice is cold and mechanical, like the hinge of a heavy iron door, concealing his identity, no doubt. And right off the bat here, you can see that our options are often keyed towards specific attributes or sub-attributes. In some cases, we have a randomized chance to succeed. Here you can see we're not great at Constitution. That's linked to Self-Discipline, which is our lowest starting ability. So we've only got a 1 in 3 chance of actually passing that, which does largely just come down to conventional RNG mechanics, though they dress it up like a draw from a tarot deck, as opposed to a roll of the dice. Now, obviously, the odds aren't in our favor on this one, and sometimes there are penalties for failure, so this may be a case where we're better served by animalistic silence. +1 yellow bile. Delicious. He proffers me a tin-tippled flask. A small kindness. Thanks, yeah, don't mind if I do. I'd been hoping for the hair of the dog, but alas, it's only the chloric bite of London tap water. Hey, +10 vigor, I'll take it. Bollocks. This fancy jacket better have something stronger. Stowing the flask, the stranger leans back into the dim light of the gas lamps. I can finally see his features in full. He wears a brass-buttoned traveling waistcoat, complete with a scarlet hood, and mask of ornate gold panels. It glitters in the gaslight, delicately crafted. His mask may be pretty, but it'd still stop a bullet. Good to know. Thank you, Animal Instinct. You're chattier than I remember. On your feet now, you sorry sight. And that, of course, is one of the 3 characters we saw on the main screen. So we're already seeing some overlap here. Though we cannot follow his story just yet. It's not available in the current build. Dizzy from the head rush. It's hard to keep my balance. Who are you, and what do you want from me? A friend in need of your services. A friend? But a man of his station, so deep in the docklands, spells trouble. In need of my brawn, no doubt. Looking for someone to do his dirty work. Yeah, Animal Instinct is definitely being chattier than I remember with my Hermit run. That's interesting, because it does seem to confirm what I already suspected, which is that the higher your various core ability scores, the chattier that specific aspect of your personality is, because with my previous run, my wits were doing most of the talking, with the others chiming in more sporadically. I need a moment to get my bearings. Fair enough, but I'll be watching. The stranger pulls back his waistcoat, showing off a gilded flintlock pistol. Over the years, many a minge bag have come to collect. This barmy naff is no different. Those are certainly words. So many outstanding debts and foregone second chances. Is it all catching up to me? You can try like all the others, but none have yet succeeded. That's as may be, but if you keep going on this way, it's only a matter of time. And that's our intro. Let's go over the basics here real quick. This, of course, is our journal. It tracks our overarching story, as well as individual tasks, which can vary depending on how you approach things, which at the moment mostly just revolves around holding fast to our sanity, always a good sign. Though that does at least establish for us that there is something weird going on with our character's head. At the very least, it does make it clear that the old crone does not belong. Then, of course, we also have our RNG system, which, as aforementioned, is dressed up like tarot cards. A set of 4 minor tarot decks, each one associated with one of our primary attributes. We'll draw cards from those specific decks for checks associated with those attributes. And then, while they're all identical at the moment, we can also attach a major tarot card to each deck, such as Chariot here, which we started with because of our choice of character background. The major tarots will alter the way that individual deck functions, though sometimes they can also influence how all of your decks function. I'm a little unclear on exactly how you differentiate them. In this particular case, though, this card will apparently allow us to draw 1 card face up whenever we make RNG checks with that specific deck, which isn't bad at all, because that'll let us glance at that 1 card and see immediately whether or not that would be sufficient to pass our check. Let's bring that over to one of our less reliable attributes. We'll go with Spryness. That sounds good. That's the one we use for stealing and cracking locks and such. And then, speaking of attributes, this is our character sheet. Fairly straightforward. We've got 4 primary attributes, each one starting between 10 and 18. To determine whether or not you pass associated checks, you just draw a tarot card, and then add the value of that card to your current score in that attribute, plus any special modifiers such as skill specializations, which in this case we only have in Intimidation. Our 5th attribute is a bit different. That's self-reflection, one of the chattier aspects of our brain. But rather than being used for skill checks and the like, this one apparently more influences how we see ourselves and the filter through which we see the world. I mean, it's sort of a character bio, but it's broken down into quotes as to how we think other people see us. I have to imagine that in the full game, consistently perceiving ourselves in different ways may influence how we see things or how we can interact with things. Though at the moment it's largely just a novelty. One final note here is the rather humorous character advancement system. Throughout the previous dialogue, I'm sure you noticed that we were accruing, after various choices, an assortment of unpleasant fluids. And that is how the game tracks our ability progression. As we make dialogue choices or skill checks associated with our 4 primary attributes, each time we choose one of those options, we'll gain +1 in the fluid associated with that attribute, which will build up in our brain, probably not super healthy, but I guess it works. And then once it fills up all the way, we'll be given a choice of 3 potential advancements, usually something along the lines of +1 to the base score of that attribute, a slightly more generous boost to a specific subskill or substat associated with that attribute, or a new major tarot card, which we can then attach to one of our 4 decks. Though ultimately we can only have 4 active tarot cards at a time, so getting more than that is a bit pointless. Alright, let's get a gander at where we woke up. An evening cane, concealing a steel blade in a cherrywood sheath. Below the brass figurehead is a band of crushed velvet. A fine weapon, sturdy and well-balanced, easy to wield, and suitable in aristocratic circles. Yes, we will absolutely take that. The Illustrated London News, this week's edition. A fleet-footed journalist takes to the East End, underground and undercover. The hard-boiled scoop on the courtesan killer. Who's really behind the murders? And what is Scotland Yard still hiding from the public? Read on for the gory details. This story will boil your blood. And we have a wits option here that isn't attached to a skill check, so that's a guaranteed +1 wits XP. There is no reason for us to not take that. Hazards of the job, I suppose. But it's a shame. No one deserves to die like that. I mean, our animal instinct score is already pretty great. There's no real reason for us to focus on bulking it up. Self-discipline, on the other hand, is our weakest aspect, so I feel like we're going to end up leaning on that more often than not, even though our backstory portrays us as like an impulsive brute. Otherwise, we'll never be able to pass those constitution or self-discipline checks. That's true. And I've kept their company before. It could have been an acquaintance of mine. Christina? That's entirely possible. Dolly's being hunted. It is rather curious. Well, I'm no police special, but I'll see what I can find. Which, of course, adds a new task to our journal. The Case of the Courtesan Killer. Sadly, I believe beyond the scope of the current playtest. Tasks are interesting because there do seem to be a wide variety of both serious and mundane tasks we can take upon ourselves. But a lot of them are easy to miss. Some of them will only pop up with specific dialogue combos, usually during rare moments of self-introspection or debate with some part of your brain. I imagine that'll all tie into the self-reflection mechanic. Jennifer, rotgut, and dry gin bottles are strewn about, broken and empty. Remnants of another night, drowned in sorrow. Looks to me like a night well spent. That's a deal of liquor, but a minotaur takes double to ride the same carriage. Speaking of which, let's see if there's more. Okay, recollection is a subset of wit. Odds are slightly in our favor, 2 in 3 chance of success. That's not terrible. You'll notice there's a small cost associated with actually making this check. 1 nerve, which is modest, even half-dead as we are. But there will be other checks in the future which will have much steeper costs attached. Our alternative here is to gain +1 self-discipline. But given that the odds are in our favor, I think we'll risk it. Get that +1 wit. And a potential bonus. Alright, tarot cards, work with me here. We only need a 5 or higher. And that is the exact opposite of what we needed. That is the Fool, worth 0 points. Nothing here but empties. Yeah, so it is essentially your basic RNG system, but you know, prettied up to look like tarot cards instead of dice. There are chances for auto-success and auto-failure in the form of the World, which is +100, and the Inverse World, which is -100, and then the Fool is 0. Though in some cases, if your primary attribute is high enough, you can still pass checks, even if you draw the Fool. Oh, and you can also save and load at will, so you can save scum these checks if you really want to. But I think much like with Disco Elysium, you're kind of cheating yourself if you don't accept the occasional bout of failure. A wrought iron gate, topped with speared finials. There's an oxidized chain and a padlock over the hasp. Should be a soft job, so long as this lock isn't rusted through. Odds are in our favor on both of these checks, so we'll go for fine motor. Right, and because we have the chariot card locked to this deck, we draw one of our cards face up. In fact, this is a check we would pass even if we drew the Fool, because our result would still equal the difficulty. We would only fail if we drew the Inverted World, and this lets us avoid that. I listen to the driver pins click into place along the shear line, whereupon the plug turns, freeing the hinges. That'll do. I wonder where it leads. Away from the stranger is enough for me. Ah, so our wits seem to think the stranger is bad news. Probably not entirely inaccurate. But let's finish looking around before we dip into any mysterious tunnels. Some wayward cartwright abandoned their wagon here. Beyond it, tenements and a dead end. He's got me hemmed in. I fought my way out of far worse. Even with the jitters, I can still aim a fist. There's a reason I'm known as a bruiser in the Docklands. Yeah, I'm not really sure I see that fight going in our favor. Pretty sure that guy's a royal assassin and a robot. A slatted wooden basket made from hazel cuttings. Willow branches weave around the bottom for support. Why am I up here looking at a basket? Surely I have more important matters to attend to. I can smell the rotting fish from here. Several days past its prime. Let's have a look. White strips of flesh swimming in a pool of decomposition. Kippered herring? Oof. Yep, and there's our self-discipline coming back to bite us. Unfortunately, while you might not expect it, constitution, physical constitution, is also considered an aspect of self-discipline, which is our weakest point. So we are both mentally and physically frail, although still physically powerful, if just through brute strength and raw animal aggression. Best not to take any chances, I think. We're already half dead, no sense in literally vomiting until we die. Yeah, that's enough for me. Much like in Disco Elysium, there are entirely mundane objects and events which will absolutely kill you if you give them a chance. Mechanical odds and ends, shimmering in the gaslight. Worth a little tin if you deal them to an engine man. Might prove useful. And that is one of 2 types of currency we can collect. Very nice. Not, I think, that we can get far enough for that to actually matter in the current playtest. Military grade, reinforced with barbed wire. The sign reads, Werewolf Containment Zone, in luminescent paint. Electric bolts arc between the fence posts. The smoky ozone scent, flooding your nostrils. Worth a look around? Might be another way through. Yeah, given that this high-grade electric fence is strong enough to stop werewolves, let's maybe not run ourselves into it. I feel like werewolves might rank just slightly higher than minotaurs on the strength hierarchy. And no luck on the mechanics check. Oh well. Can't make heads or tails of this in the dark. Besides, I'm no engineer. I don't have time for this. I do like that the game keeps prompting us to make terrible decisions, though. Julie and Bertram O'Brien, orphans missing from the Sacred Heart Orphanage. Small reward furnished upon any information leading to their safe return. Please have a heart for our poor children. The Sisters of the Sacred Heart, 22 Cherrywine Lane, East End, London. Alms accepted. Interesting. I remember this place. But I'd rather not think about it. A brother and sister, gone missing from where I was brought up. They'll have to fend for themselves like I did. It's a good thing I ran away, otherwise I might have gone missing. Like them. Fine, fine. Something's not right here. And the orphans in the Docklands need all the help they can get. Well, that is fascinating. I completely bypassed that my first time through. Just goes to show how easy it is to miss some of these optional tasks. Though I imagine in the full game there will be redundant triggers for at least some of the more important tasks. Such as if we were to stumble across one of those missing orphans, even without finding the missing poster. There's our mysterious mechanical man. We'll just go in the opposite direction, I think. Our brain is telling us that guy's bad news, so into the shadows we go. What's the worst that could happen? The passage is lined with stone walls, damp from the evening fog and the underground steam boiler, used to heat the tenements above. Barrels line the walls and seem to occupy every available space in this underground storeroom. Cane rats scurry and squeak in the corners, kneading at their nests. The underground air is stagnant, full of dust and the scent of mold. A ways off there's a sound of a pump house at work, no doubt channeling sewage into the Thames. There's a dim light ahead. Perhaps you can find help, or at least a way out of the stranger's grasp. On your guard now. There's no telling what's down here. Ah, you worry too much. I've seen the worst of the underground in my days. If trouble comes my way, I've got my blade and a silver tongue. Sure. A 30-something cove, writhing on the cobbles. Must have had his fill. If he was on guard, easy now to get by him. Or bash his head in. Might be safer that way. Okay, well, let's hold off on the unprovoked murder. Ah, he's harmless. Chickered beyond reason. Besides, maybe I know him. Can't say I remember his face, but that's one thundering night terror he's having. Anything in his pockets? That's a good question. Let's have a look. Oof, that's guaranteed failure on the first card. And no luck. Just how it goes sometimes. I reach into his pockets, but he starts turning over. Back off now. Don't wake him up. Okay, well that certainly could have gone worse. Let's rummage through his things here instead. Red cedar paneled and cornered with iron. A sturdy but time-worn container. The lock's corroded. I could force it. Rootin' in rubbish with hopes for a little tin. Just like my scavenging days. Diamonds in the coal and flesh in the cobbles. That's the old limerick the urchins would sing. The only sounds are the dripping pipes, the scurrying of rats and the gears in your skull. spinning out the past. Christ on a high wheel, would you open the box already? Right, yeah. I'm on it. Hey, there we go. With a swift back elbow, the lock crumbles into iron filings. And there's only the gin bibber who might have heard the noise, but he's too blotto to pay us any mind. And what great treasure is this? It's a deal of fabric, trousers with a bib sewn across, and a brass pulley zipper to fasten the button line. And here's a head torch with a polished tin reflector and copper coil battery, a pair of boots and breeches, a vest and a waistcoat, and enough pockets to carry a dining set. To be sure, it's fit for a sandhog. It does sound useful. And I completely destroyed it in my first run. Let's see if we have more luck this time. So what if I tear the seams? It's not like someone's missing this pile of rags. Easing into the raiment, I draw up the back zipper until my elbows refuse to bend. Oh, right, Constitution. That is less than ideal. But, what the heck? Hey, okay. Just gotta force it. Emptying my lungs, I abandon the brass buttons, reaching instead for the torso belts. They fasten at the very last punch hole. Self-discipline, nice to hear from you. This could be a sign to lay off the swill a while. Really? Aye, maybe you're right. The source of many a trouble. Oh, and look at that. They actually changed our character portrait. That's cool. I could start with one less drink a day. One less a day? Sure, I can handle that. Don't be so sure. The naysayers will gab as they please, but at least I'm ready to change. Enough maundering. Let's get on with it. The uniform comes with a mask and air filter, but the mouthpiece is a terrible fit for a minotaur. Not exactly worthy of Petticoat Lane, but in the shadows, it should do the trick. So did we actually unlock a new task, or... We did. Cut back on your drinking. Fair enough. It's funny because, again, because of the way the game's skill system works, I completely missed that with my first run, my Wits character, because I was trying to bolster his animal instinct, which led me to choose animal instinct options more often. So we're seeing some fairly different outcomes here from my first run. We successfully pulled on this sandhog outfit. We've got the headlamp, the breath filter mask, and we now have a task to improve ourselves, if just marginally so. A disc of wrought iron, loosened by a crack. Could be somebody's hiding place. Aye, but the cover's a bull heavy. Well, lucky me, I just happen to be a bull. Nice. Blood and bile twist in your veins. A show of unbridled strength. Let's see what's down here. There's a latched compartment below the manhole cover, but it's padlocked too tightly to break. That's a capital lock. I'll need a key. There has to be something here. My fumbling hands come up empty. How about I reach back in the corners? Stone the crows! Bloody cane rat bit me! Must have a nest. Yeah, let's not chance that. I'm not going to come this far just to die to a plague rat in a sewer. This isn't worth it. I'd better staunch the wound. So we can come back to it later, if and when we ever boost our con sufficiently. A battered crate, moldering in sewer grime. Glad I have this mask on. It should keep out the dust. Nice, nice. Smash it open! Critical success. It caves in with a crack and a cloud of fetid dust. Okay, let's have a look. Here's something with a dull shine to it. It's a pry bar. I can make good use of this. Yeah, with my wits character, I had to use that to help open the manhole cover. But my bull strength character had no issues with that. Though I'm sure there's still more uses for the pry bar. Watch it. There's somebody on the stairs. With that head torch, he could be on patrol. And I don't suppose he takes kindly to trespassers. Let's go for spryness. He's coming double quick. Where can I hide? Shadow light cloaks the wall just behind me. If I step back, I should be out of sight. Oh wow, that check is not in our favor. That's actually a lot harder than my wits character had it. Which is probably because of the headlamp, right? I'll not be shadow-bound. I'll fight him if I have to. A uniform stricken with unspeakable filth. His breath hisses through accordioned tubes. Even with your goggles on, his head torch is blinding. He smells worse than the sewer walls. Must be a bilgeman. Hey ho, Sandhog. Presumption in his tone. Does he not care for sandhogs? I won't take it personally. I'm not a sandhog anyway. What's that, eh, Sandy? Mumbling to yourself? Oh, did I say that out loud? Well, at least he hasn't noticed my ill-fitting uniform. What are you doing this side of the tunnels? Shouldn't you have your head in a hole somewhere? Yeah, let's maybe not tell this guy there's an assassin looking for us. I feel like that's something we should probably keep under wraps. I'm down here on official, Sandhog business. You wouldn't understand. With a toss of his head, he laughs into his breathing tube, and the light from his head torch dances off the cobbles. Sorry there, Cove. I'm whooping at your expense. But it's just so difficult to imagine a sand pig with a delegation of duties. Drill there, drill a bit here. Simple, innit? Again. You wouldn't understand. Here's what I do understand. Your ankles are showing like a cherry bride. Your sleeves are all but shredded. And you're carrying what, an evening cane? Shouldn't it be a basket of drill bits? The jig is up. Alright, well, this guy's really kind of asking for it. What I've got here, it isn't just a cane. I swiftly draw the cane sword. Point me out of this cesspool. Just a finger in the right direction. Hey, and rank up? What's that? Wits? Nice. Let's have a look at our options here. Okay, so we've got 3 choices here. We can boost our base wit up to 13, we can boost our max nerve by 10, or we can unlock a new major tarot, temperance, which will boost the value of the Fool card to 15, but also removes the auto shuffle that comes if you draw the Fool. Not really a big deal. I think temperance actually affects all your decks, so that might actually be a good investment. Yeah, we'll go with temperance. See if that is indeed how it works. Worst case scenario, it'll still drastically improve our chances with one deck. We'll go ahead and attach that to Animal Instinct for now. We'll move it if need be. Ah, right. And we were threatening this guy. His breathing tube is quiet from the greater hiss of fear growing inside him. Alright. If you follow this passage, there's a grate that needs refastening. Been meaning to fix it, but aside from the way you came, I swear it's the only exit. At last. A decent answer from a less than decent man. Sure as sight. Sorry I stopped you. I'll just have a squeeze by, I suppose. Be seeing you. That's right. Run away. Nice to actually flex our intimidation factor for once. Though there was no associated skill check, so I guess that was really just an auto success because we were armed. Might have played out differently had we not picked up the cane. A brass-handed traveling trunk with sturdy corners, fit for a long voyage. It's out of place down here. There's tin inside, I'm sure of it. But the padlock has a carbon steel shackle, and pin tumblers triple reinforced. Oh, yikes. Even though spryness is our second highest attribute, our odds of actually succeeding at that check are pretty slim. Yeah, I feel like that's one of those checks that you're really supposed to come back to later. Either once you're drastically more skilled or have an appropriate means of opening it. A key or combination or other appropriate tool, perhaps. I'll come back later with something to get this open. I'm a bit leery of fiddling with locks because my Wits character jammed a few. Speak up. Who disrupts the air? Hello there. As you can see, I'm a sandhog. So, you know, just heading down to the tunnels. That's right and fly. Haven't met a sandhog I didn't like. My name's Hera. The letters H-E-R-A are blazoned on its chest plate. What do the letters stand for? Heat Energy Regulation Automaton, the latest iteration. Sure, Hera, wife of Zeus. In any case, it suits you. I'm thrilled to hear it. Now, can I help you? I should get back to the flame. This area reeks of the Doghounds, even worse than the sulfur and bilge. What's going on? Aha, you must have noticed these barrels. They're really quite capital. The hounds are distilling their own gin from the heat off my boiler, and somehow the Sherlock tenements upstairs haven't caught on. Those people must be freezing. It's only autumn now, but it feels like midwinter. I'd rather have the extra gin. Brings down the price. And we can always deal with a little cold. And that bumps up our animal instinct. Let's have a look at our options. We can boost our base score up to 19. We can specialize in brute force. Or we can unlock the moon, which grants a small chance for skill checks to recover nerve. You know, that's not bad, but I get the impression that would be a lot more useful for a full campaign. This, of course, is just a self-contained 90-ish minute demo. We'll go for the skill boost. I feel like that's the one we'll get the most use out of in this, in the confines of this limited playtest. Honestly, even in the full campaign, I'd probably lean skill boosts whenever possible. A lot of my ilk came up from those tenements. Fine. The hounds might be bargained with, and it's not as if the public houses will run dry. We'll have a deal of persuasion on our hands. What else do you know about the gin barrels? The steam gets siphoned and the barrels come and go. Some are fresh and some have stood for several months, ready for a swiller. The machine is keeping track. Automatic circuits, indeed. When the flame is healthy, I turn my attention to the walls. And before I know it, I'm whirring away. It's a queer feeling. We're just 2 away on spryness. But we do also need self-discipline. I'm sorry to hear that. Must be difficult, revving up without a choice. That's kind of you, but I don't mind the challenge. Speaking of which, I should get back to the coals. Any more reasoning and it might blow a fuse. About the barrels, I shouldn't have let it slip. So even if you've been bluffing with me all the while, at least you know I don't have any circuitry for lies. Well, I can trust you by default then. In that case, where do they keep the barrels ready for shipping? Behind the furnace, there's something of a staging area. That's where the barrels get carried out. Have a look for yourself, but I must get back to work. Alright, and we have now unlocked an exit. So we can proceed ever deeper into these fetid sewers. But let's have a look at those barrels we passed earlier. Sorry about the mouse cursor. Kaiser is currently using my arm as a headrest. That's right, I see your ears moving. I'm talking about you. A barrel, like any other, standing upright. Looks ready for shipping out. Oh, right, we have that task to cut back on drinking. I wonder I wonder if this will actually do something. Tempting, but I was thinking of cutting back. It beggars belief. I mean, I promised, so consider this the one less drink. But after this, I'm good to go. Huh. Okay, did that... I mean, no obvious results. But it did check that quest off of our task list. Interesting. Nice work. That wasn't so hard, was it? Very intriguing. I'll bet in the full game that'll help shape our self-reflection. In this case, a sign of restraint as opposed to embracing our more animalistic or hedonistic or indulgent side. Though sadly this is, again, just a taste of one of the 3 full planned campaigns, so we won't get to go nearly far enough to really see that sort of thing come into play, I think. That said, we are running a bit long here. My timer went off like 10 minutes ago and I just kind of ignored it. But we're only halfway through this thing, so I guess this is a good place for us to call it. We'll hit the pause button for now, I'll get this thing rolled out, and we'll do a second half a bit later down the line. It is a very fascinating game, perhaps not the most exciting, but very intriguing, both in its presentation and in its story, though we really haven't delved too deeply into that. Thus far, we've mostly just been reacting to things. We were approached by a mysterious masked man, and have since spent our time trying to avoid him. And learning about the world around us, and ourselves, of course. It's as much a journey of self-discovery as it is about whatever overarching plot we're currently trying to avoid. I will say, the specialization system's a bit odd in that it starts you specialized in certain areas with a backstory to match, but the way the game works, it does kind of encourage you to then start focusing on the areas you're weakest in to shore them up, because you need a lot less help with the areas you're already good at. In our case, I went into it thinking I was going to be an animalistic, impulsive brute, but instead I find myself playing the part of the, recovering alcoholic or hedonist, the one who's trying to get his life that's already spiraled out of control back on track, only falling back on his old habits when he really has to. It's actually somewhat similar to how I ended up playing my wits character, come to think of it. They were already smart and good at self-discipline, but really bad at kind of standing up for themselves or acting out when needed. So I spent a lot of their run just kind of trying to teach them how to assert themselves more effectively. Though I do imagine that's one of those things that'll vary from player to player. Anyway, very intriguing game thus far. That said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. We'll hit the pause button for now, and we will pick up here next time. See you then. Oh, and remember, although I do very much enjoy playing Sovereign Syndicate, you can check it out for yourself by downloading the playtest currently available on Steam, or by visiting the official website. And if you'd like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things, or maybe even check out the Patreon, or the new YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.